The only creature whose natural habitat is the zoo is the zookeeper. As a child, I was deeply infatuated with the marine wildlife, so much so that I would take every chance I could to go to our neighboring aquarium so I could watch the fish and pretend I was in the water with them. As I got older, I grew to love marine wildlife so much that I decided to become a marine biologist. To me, the world's most interesting secrets and discoveries were not in outer space, but under our feet. I was forced to examine whether my love for marine wildlife could coexist with my love for the aquarium after watching the documentary Blackfish, an expose on the treatment of orcas at SeaWorld. The documentary brought to light how the marine park had been capturing orcas from their natural habitats and forcing them into cramped enclosures and training them to perform for human entertainment. During their captivity, they were improperly cared for and forced to breed at an early age. The conditions that they were kept in also led to their lifespans being drastically shortened. While zoos and aquariums claim that their purpose is to educate and expose mankind to the various creatures that we share the world with, and that by keeping animals in captivity and breeding them, it is helping to increase their population. However, as organizations like PETA point out, it is nearly impossible because animals raised in zoos do not acquire the necessary survival instincts that their wild counterparts developed from living in their natural habitat. Re-released animals may also potentially spread disease to wild animals, and any restoration efforts are often unsuccessful because of habitat loss due to human development. Moreover, animal rights activists assert that any research conducted on caged animals does not further knowledge on the species because captivity inherently restricts natural animal behavior. No animal deserves to be taken from their home, especially not for human entertainment. If we are to learn from the other organisms that we share our world with, we first have to recognize and acknowledge that they live a life that is separate from our own. And especially for creatures like dolphins and whales, we have to recognize their intelligence and treat them with respect accordingly. I hope that by the end of this speech, it is clear why aquariums should be banned and why we should find another way to observe and learn about marine wildlife. When we consider how aquariums obtain the animals within their care, we first have to examine that even on a small scale of aquariums that are in people's homes, there is a high capture to tank mortality rate. Toxins like cyanide are often used to capture fish, and this can lead to death or impairment of the target fish and non-target species. And in the case of more exotic marine creatures, some collectors will even go to the extent of destroying coral reefs to capture fish and other marine animals. Aquatic life that are held in aquariums have also found to have a shorter lifespan, creating a constant supply and demand chain of having to capture new stock as the animals die out. Although zoos and aquariums try their best, it is nearly impossible for them to replicate the conditions that the animals they capture would be in if allowed to remain in their natural habitat. And for those that are raised in captivity and released into the wild, they have been robbed of their chance to hone in on their survival skills, making them an easy target once they are back in their natural habitat. Anyone that has seen the expose Blackfish should naturally feel a sense of unease when entering an aquarium. Because while organizations like SeaWorld would publicly claim that their intentions were purely conservational, the documentary showed how false that was. The orcas in the care were not only left in horrible conditions, in tight, shallow enclosures that made them prone to receiving sunburns, which went untreated and were instead covered up in order to maintain public appearance, but they were also forced to breed at an early age. Male orcas were taught to float on their backs so that trainers could masturbate them to collect sperm, which was then artificially inseminated into young females before their breeding age. In some instances, they would even inseminate mothers with the sperm collected from their sons. Using animals for entertainment is the bottom of the ethical totem pole, argues Gabriella Copperwhite, director of the film Blackfish. Marine animals are competent and independent creatures, and while it is fascinating to see them close and personal, it should not be at the expense of their quality of life and well-being. When I think about how stifled I have felt during the months that we have been on lockdown, it is heartbreaking to me to imagine that for some marine wildlife, this is all that they have known. We need to ban the capture of marine wildlife for human entertainment, and we need to put more effort into finding new ways to study and view marine life so that we are not disrupting their lives for the creatures of these creatures for our own expense.